The topic of this series of videos is called Consumer Choice Theory, sometimes called Utility Maximization. In a Principles of Microeconomics class, it is hands down the hardest chapter to tackle, but we will overcome. It's going to start off probably especially hard because I have to define some terms that aren't going to make a lot of sense without context, but I don't know a better way, really, than to define them and then build the context around them. Miller actually starts off with something we're going to get to, and I don't know that without seeing the application it really helps to understand the big picture by putting it first either. So I'm going to start off with these terms. I've done this a few times, and it will get us there. It will. What we're looking to do with this idea of utility maximization or consumer choice theory is to answer questions like this. As a consumer, what do you do when you get a raise? There are different things you could do. So we're going to analyze what you might do given these different options that we all have. What if you came across some supplemental income, things like that? We're going to look at what we might be able to do. We've already talked about income as a determinant of demand. So we talked about how there were normal goods and inferior goods, and rises in income increased demand for normal goods, and how it might decrease demand for inferior goods. And so what if we looked at things like work versus not working and treat them like goods? What might we do with a raise? Would we always want to buy more of this other thing called leisure? Is it a normal good or is it an inferior good? We're going to get into things like this. I'm sure I'm building excitement among any people watching this. So the first term we need to get comfortable with, well, maybe we won't be comfortable with it right away, but get familiar with. It's called the income effect. Income effect. And the income effect works something like this. If I get a raise, I have more money. If leisure were a good, I would use my new money to buy more leisure. So what I'm saying about leisure here is it's time not working. Resting, chilling, whatever, that's leisure. But it's time. And we only have so many hours in a day. We can either be working or engaging in leisure. Let me repeat this again. The income effect works like this. If I get a raise, I have more money. If leisure were a good, I would use my new money to buy more leisure. We like leisure. And to get leisure, we have to give up work. So we trade leisure for what we could be making at work. So why don't we treat it like a good? And the income effect is telling us that if it were a good and we got a raise, we would buy more of it. In other words, if I get a raise, I don't have to work as much. That's the income effect within us if that's what we do. Or the extent to which we behave like that, that is due to the income effect. Don't worry, there's a lot more to help clarify what it is. Now, focusing on goods instead of the work-leisure trade-off. When the price of some necessity falls, and I'm choosing necessity, it's just easier to think about a necessity. When the price of some necessity falls, I have more money to spend elsewhere, or I can buy more of that good. As I may use the extra money to buy more of the other goods, it reflects the income effect of the price drop. It's actually true for all goods, not just necessities, but it's easier to think about with necessities. So let me try to put a name to this idea of a good here. When gas prices fall. Now, if gas is cheaper, maybe I should drive more. Maybe I should use more gas because it costs less to do so. And maybe I do. But there's another effect in me as well, where if gas prices are cheaper, that leaves me more money left over to buy other things. That's the income effect of the gas price fall. It's like I have more income. Let's compare this with the other thing that we have to get under our belt by the end of this. The substitution effect. It goes like this in terms of work and leisure. If I get a raise, I make more money by working more, so I substitute work for leisure. I react to the thing that treats me well. I got a raise, work is what gives me money, so I work more. The raise induces me to work more. I substitute more work for leisure, because those are the two things I could do. That's the substitution effect in that trade-off between work and leisure. Let's think about it in terms of a good. When the price of some good falls, it becomes cheaper compared to other goods. I might buy more of this good and fewer of other goods. Thus, I would substitute this good for other goods. When things get cheaper, we've said all along, demand curves are downward sloping. When things get cheaper, we will buy more of that thing, all else held constant, right? There's one exception to that, the Giffen good, and that's a pretty rare exception. But generally, if the price of something gets cheaper, we'll buy more of it. That's the substitution effect, because that's relative to other goods. I'm buying more of that thing, and I'm substituting this good for other goods. Now, those effects are within each of us a little bit, and what we're going to look at is our behavior net of both effects when we analyze these things. And we're going to consider the role of these effects in our decision making. That's ultimately what we're doing here. So, now getting to the mechanics of this, I ask this question. Why do I care about the price of goods, or why do I care about my salary? We all do. Ever ask yourself, why? Why do I care? What difference does it make how much I make? What difference does it make if something's more expensive? Because it costs more? That's not an answer. What difference does it make if something's more expensive? Why do we dislike something being more expensive? Because that's less money that we have to use for something else, isn't it? Why do we like higher salaries? Because that's more money to use for whichever things we might choose to use it for. Well, guess what? We get to model this. To do so, I'm going to hold three assumptions, and they're kind of abstract, but there are three assumptions that we make about goods and people. The first one has these things have a name, gives people like me job security. The first one's called completeness. Completeness. And the old textbook definition is people are not paralyzed by indecision. You could say what you prefer between two goods. I like Coke more than Pepsi. I like Pepsi more than Coke. You could say that. Or you could say, I like them the same. So we could say what's preferred, or we could say when they are actually equally attractive. That's an assumption. It's a bold assumption. When I was an undergrad and first heard that, I realized how silly I was when I would go to convenience stores and I would stand in front of, when I used to drink soda, stand in front of the soda cooler at a convenience store and be paralyzed by indecision. I would find myself thinking, oh, I'm going to get a Mountain Dew, because I always got Mountain Dew. But then once in a while I think, well, maybe I should do something different today. And once I had that thought, it was on. I could be there for 5 minutes looking there, just looking stupid, looking at a cooler, trying to decide what to get. Paralyzed by indecision. We're assuming that people don't routinely behave that way, that they actually know what they want, or what they would prefer. So that's the first assumption. The second assumption is called transitivity. You got to follow the bouncing ball here. Transitivity works like this. If good A is preferred to good B, and good B is preferred to good C, then good A is preferred to good C. I think sometimes we violate this, but follow through. If you prefer A to B, I like A and B, but I like B more than I like C, should follow that A is preferred to C if you're ranking things using transitivity, this assumption of transitivity. I find some places where we seem to violate this as in politics, because if you talk to people about the candidates they like, they'll say a candidate that they'll tell you who they like in the primaries, they'll tell you who they like and why they like them, and then their second choice will be someone who is farther away from that than their third choice. That violates transitivity, but I think people do that sometimes. We're assuming that generally people don't do that. Continuity is pretty similar. That's the third assumption. Continuity goes like this. If good A is preferred to good B, then goods just like A are also preferred to good B. And you see this sometimes violated, again, in people's political discussions, I think, where they'll say, oh, I like this candidate, but I really don't like that candidate. I like that candidate over there. And the one they don't like is more similar in platform to the one they do like than the other one they like. That doesn't really make sense. That's continuity. It's slightly different than transitivity. Transitivity is about the ranking, and this is just like what should be grouped together in our tastes if we're meeting the assumption of continuity. If good A is preferred to good B, then goods just like A are also preferred to good B. So what we're doing going forward is assuming those things about people, even though, they might be sometimes bold assumptions. So, in my notes, and for this chapter, it would probably be a good idea to follow along in the notes. There are a lot of tables in there like this one, and I don't have any great way to convey this entire table, but it would be handy for you to have it in front of you to see where I'm coming from. I'm looking at two goods: pizza and still compact discs. Here he goes with the obsolete compact discs again. I know. But come on, we've all had them for the most part in our lives. They're in our closet somewhere. Pizza and compact discs are the goods I'm still going with. There are reasons. And so these are the two things we might buy, and we're pretending they're the only two things we might buy. And we also have a job, so we have income. So we have pizza, compact discs, and income. Pizza costs $10 a pizza. Compact discs cost $20 each, and our income in whatever time period we're talking about is $100. So now we get to start modeling stuff. I know you've been wanting to do that. So what I do is I put pizza on the vertical axis, and I put CDs on the horizontal axis, just because that's lower alphabetically. CDs do not cause pizza. This is not that kind of a relationship. This is sort of similar to the production possibilities curve. We're subject to income is $100. The price of pizza is $10. The price of CDs is $20. And I hope that's fitting in. That's just notes on what I said. Well, if pizza is $10 and we have $100, how many pizzas can we buy? 10. Let's say that's here. And I'm putting it there because I also know how many CDs I can buy. If I have $100 and pizza is $10, if I buy 10 pizzas, how many CDs can I buy? 0. So that is one thing I can do subject to this budget constraint that these prices and income make for me. If CDs are $20, how many CDs can I buy? I can buy 5. That would be about half this distance, so let's say that's there. So this is 10, this would be 5. And it's there because that would mean not buying any pizza. And of course I could buy combinations in between. Since CDs are $20, if I bought 4 CDs, that would leave me $20 left over, and I could buy 2 pizzas, so that might be like there. I could buy 8 pizzas, and that would leave me enough for one CD, and that would be like there. And so you get the idea, I think, that what you have is a straight line budget constraint. This is called a budget constraint. And this is a straight line because it's just a function of the prices and the income. That's the most you can buy right there. Those combinations in between are just the most you can buy given the prices you face and the income that you make. The slope is the trade-off between these two goods. The slope of this line is equal to the price of CDs over the price of pizzas, and we can ignore that sign. It's going down 2 over 1, so that's the relative prices of the two goods. One good is twice as much as the other good. Now, the thing with goods is that we like buying stuff. We described it with our 10 principles of economics that we always will face scarcity. We like buying stuff. We get from stuff something called utility. And this video segment is going to be about the budget constraint that we face. The next piece that I'm about to record will be about utility.